We're going to walk you through the installation of the J&L oil separator for your 2-liter EcoBoost. Including the J&L kit is an oil separator, 2 hoses, a mounting bracket, mounting screws, and a mounting bolt. The tools you'll need for installation is a 10mm socket, extension, ratchet, Phillips head screwdriver, standard screwdriver, tape, and light grease or oil. Let's get started. All right, our first step, we're going to remove this air inlet duct. There's 2 push pins. You're going to take your flathead screwdriver and pry up on the pins to remove them. And then to remove the duct, just pull up out of the air box. Now the PCV line, you're going to reach your hand in between the starter and the intake manifold. The PCV line is a corrugated line, which I'll insert a photo of the location. There's 2 standard 4 disconnects on. I'll show you how they operate once we get this line off. All right, so this is our PCV line. To remove it, you have to pull these tabs away. So you'll push that tab, grab it with the side of your index finger, and pull the connection off for both. All right, so we need to remove these fittings from this line. The easiest way I find to do this is to use a lighter. You're going to heat this hose up, and then the fitting will pull right out. You could also cut the line with a razor blade, just vertically here, and you can pull the fittings out. But I'm going to also peel the sticker to not burn the sticker up. So you don't need a whole lot of heat. Obviously, without you could do this with a heat gun, even a hair dryer, but just a little. A little more. And then we're going to do that for our other fitting too. So now we're going to need to press these fittings into your supplied hoses. You're going to need to lubricate your hoses. I recommend wheel bearing grease, axle grease, any kind of grease you could find. You could also use motor oil, but you need something very slippery. So we're going to grease the end of our hoses. I'm going to also grease up the fitting, and then we're going to push these fittings into these hoses. You can also use a Q-tip to apply this, or something that you may just have around the house. Okay. And both these fittings are the same, so it doesn't matter which one you put in which hose. We're almost there, and you can see it's double barbed. So even if you can only get your fitting to there, it's not going to leak. The only way you're going to get this hose back off is by cutting it. But I'm going to see if I can get that all the way to the stop. I'm twisting the hose while I push on it. And it's about there. Now obviously you can rotate your fittings once you get them in the car to follow the natural curvature of the hose and use that to your advantage in routing the hoses. Now these lines are two different lengths, so you'll want to take the longer of the two lines. One is about an inch longer than the other. It's our inside line here. This is the line that's going to go to your intake manifold, which is the connection that doesn't rotate. So that's the easiest way to tell the difference once your hands are under there. So I would suggest you grab a piece of tape. We're going to label this line, so later when we have two lines sticking out of this intake area, that I remember which line went to which connection. Definitely do this because it does make a difference. And go and route this hose to that intake manifold fitting. Once it engages, you'll hear a snap, and you'll know that the fitting is engaged. Then the other end of the line, just route it between the pipe here and the wiring harness, and we'll adjust the routing of that a little later. Next, grab your other line. This is the line that's going to run to our PCV connection on our engine block, and that's the connection that does rotate. So just route it down, make this connection. Again, it'll snap to let you know it's engaged. And then our other end of the line, we're just going to kind of tuck right behind that intake line. We're going to go ahead and pre-install our bracket onto our oil separator. Just align the two logos so they align the same way. And then use the supplied screws to mount the bracket to the separator. Our mounting boss is right here on the front of the valve cover. Use the supplied J&L bolt and mount the oil separator to the valve cover. I'm not going to tighten that bolt all the way yet. I'm going to make my hose connections, and then we'll snug it up once we're complete with that. For your hose routing, the silver pipe, which is your EGR pipe, I have both hoses going on top of. And then the hose to the PCV is coming through this gap here, and the hose from the intake is coming from behind this like EGR motor or solenoid and through this breather line. Now we just need to make our connections to the oil separator. Remember, the intake side is going to connect to the C side of your oil separator, and the PCV is going to connect to the O side. I'm going to go ahead and use our grease that we used earlier. Just a little bit on these. And then just push them up onto their respective fittings. Once we get this squared up, we're going to tighten up that 10mm bolt. It just needs to be snug. Remove our tape. And that completes our installation there. We just need to reinstall our air duct. You'll see it's got some tabs here that will snap into the factory air box. Do that first. Here, snap into place. Align our push pins. And reinstall your other. Your average collection on most of these 2-liter EcoBoost is about an ounce of oil every 1,000 miles. We recommend after 1,000 miles of installation that you check yours because it can vary from driving conditions to motor assembly to atmospheric conditions. So check it at 1,000. It'll give you a good idea how often you need to check yours. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.